Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to the third episode of The Breakdown. Now today is going to be kind of a special episode as it is Halloween this week, and I think when you will be seeing this it will be on Halloween itself. I thought we would do a piece of art that's more Halloween themed. It just so happened that earlier this week a trailer for the new Five Nights at Freddy's game Security Breach just came out. And although I've already seen it and I've already had my initial reaction to it, I thought when looking at it that there were definitely a couple of things that we could look at in this video that would be interesting to break down and maybe talk about, because there were a couple of things I noticed. Obviously, I'm not a game design person, but I am an animator, and there are a few things within the trailer that are more animation focused rather than game focused that we can talk about. It's a little bit of a different one, but I thought it'd be cool, so I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's just jump straight into the breakdown. So first of all, I'm going to watch through the entire thing without really pausing, just so that if you haven't seen it already, you kind of get an idea of what we're working with, and then after that, we'll kind of jump into it and start dissecting it, go through some moments, and talk about some things that I noticed. So without further ado, let's just jump into the reaction. I will also link the full trailer in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. I really like the way they did the music for this.
The gang are pretty tired, but they'll be back again next week after a few days of scheduled maintenance.
Oof. That's gotta hurt.
Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex is now closed, initiating nighttime protocol.
This is like insane how huge the environment is here. Look at that. That's totally not gonna haunt your nightmares.
You should be able to escape when the security doors reopen at 6 a.m.
I have thoughts about that one shot and this too, but we'll talk about it after.
If there is another way out, I will help you find it. I promise.
This part looks so good. Like, the lighting, ooh, you know, crisp. Yep, that's, no. Yep.
Please make your way to
I like
the front
that.
of the building, where you will be given novelty glasses, a voucher for one free soap.
I love whoever did the animation of the lights here. It's gotta be given props, because that really cool. So, well, yep, not creepy at all. And then it's cool how they did the date reveal. So if you haven't seen the way they did the reveal for the dates for this one, they kind of had short animated series where they did like episodes, and in every episode they would reveal one number of the date. And so we were expecting, I think, 2 more of those to be given the full release date, but I guess they just decided to just release it in this one. So there we go, that was the trailer itself. So I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. Obviously, like I said, I'm not necessarily a game design person, but there's a lot of cool animation things that we can take a look at in here. The cinematics look really good. Like, this part here, like, look at that. I just want to point out how cool the lighting looks. Look at that. So, I really like this shot because the lighting is just really well thought of, because you've got a cool light coming in and kind of giving you, it's very subtle, so you don't really, it doesn't overpower anything. So you've got this part that's kind of illuminated by it, and here you've got a very strong red pinkish light, which you can see is coming from this area, which I don't know what is the light source that's providing that, but it looks really cool. And then on top of this you have some kind of green rim light just from the bottom here that's coming from here, and there's something down there that's providing that, and we don't know what it is. So this is like super cool for the trailer, and I'm assuming also if this is a cinematic in the game, it's going to be really cool because you probably don't know what it is, and it's kind of something you have to figure out. So I think it's really smart the way they did the lighting for this. I also know how difficult it is to get things to look this destroyed. Honestly, whoever had to destroy the models, like, props to you, because I just can't do it. I'm wondering if they actually removed, you know, pieces of the model, or if they just applied a sort of texture with a lot of like bumps and normal maps to get this crack. Like, I'm assuming these cracks probably, but like the big ones, I don't know if they had to like manually go and like destroy the models, or if they could just get away with some of it, because it is a game after all. So you can get away with maybe having less intensive detail than you would like in a movie or something like that. So that's an interesting one for me that I don't quite know how they would do it. I would have gone and done it with like normal and bump maps, because I think you can get such high detail with those that you could probably get those things done. But obviously it depends how close you're going to be to that detail. So if you want something much more detailed, you probably need it to be destroyed. Honestly, I don't know. I just find it really cool how they destroy the model. And especially if you look, I think it's later in the trailer, the model definitely looks like it's in worse shape than it was earlier. Oh, that's not creepy at all. It definitely looks worse shape than what we saw in the beginning of the trailer. So I'm assuming for here, they actually had to go in and destroy the model and remove some parts of it. But for that first one, I'm just thinking if they just went and just added some normal and bump maps. I saw a lot of people point out when people were watching this is how cool the character model from this trailer looked in comparison to the first trailer. So just for comparison, let me pull up the first trailer that came out like almost a year ago now, just so you can compare the models. So this was the first trailer that they did, and this was released I think in January or February, and you can see that the character model, like, it looks good. It looks really good. I think the one thing I noticed here is the hair is a bit weird. I don't know what they used for the hair. The only way I've ever done hair is either you sculpt it or you use something like XGen, for example, to get the hair to look realistic. I don't know if that's what they used here, but it's kind of interesting to see how the hair looks here. If you compare it to here, you can see that almost it looks like they've just fixed something on the hair. It just looks more polished. I also just love the lighting on here. So for those of you who don't really follow the lore of this game and things like that, the general consensus and the hypothesis that the community has going is that this character is the same as the rabbit character we saw towards the end of the trailer that is supposed to be like the bad guy or the like villain in the story. If these two characters are the same, I find it interesting how this shot specifically has a lot of red around the eyes, because the bunny is supposed to be called Vanny. That's the name of the character. This character, at least as far as I know, doesn't have a name yet, so it's just a security guard. If you look at Vanny's character, Vanny has a lot of red in her eyes. This character has also a lot of red in her eyes. So I think it's kind of a nice little hint that they just chose to add some red here. I don't know what this shot is from or what's happening in this shot. Obviously, we don't have the context, but I just find it interesting that for some reason in this trailer, every time we see the security guard, I think this is the only time actually we see the security guard, but I just find it interesting that the red is just very strong around the eyes, and you almost have like a mask that's being drawn with the light. I think it's a nice little hint. I don't know if it's on purpose, but I just think it's cool that they did that. And if the two characters are related in some way, it's a nice little, Easter egg that they dropped in there. One thing I wanted to point out, which I thought was interesting, is if you look at this sort of section, they have a couple of shots where you can see sort of a camera thing. And I find it interesting how the textures almost seem lower res than the rest. Compared to look at how realistic this looks, or how good the textures look here. And then look at here. This just looks very, very low res. I've seen people point this out, and this is something that struck me the first time I watched this, and I was like, surely they just haven't put something that isn't rendered or something like that in the trailer. But then when you look at it, it makes sense. With how huge this environment looks to be, this map looks huge. With that much stuff going on, imagine if the cameras had to have that high level of textural detail and things like that. The other thing that I'm also thinking is, in the last trailer, we saw the main character have a sort of watch that he could go into and look at cameras and things like that. And I'm wondering if this isn't actually a view from that watch, and that's why the quality is less good, because obviously if you were on a watch, quality of what you would have on a watch isn't going to be as good as what you're going to have on a big computer. I wonder how they go about in doing this. They have gameplay shots of you walking through these areas, and it looks really good, and the graphics are super realistic and things like that. And then here it looks less realistic and almost bit more like a mobile game. I wonder if they had to make 2 separate sets of textures for this and do one higher res texture and then a lower res texture, or I wonder if they just made all the textures really high res and they just downgraded the textures for these specific parts. For me, at least in my mind, the best way to go about it would be you'd make all the high res textures first, and then you just kind of lower the quality of the textures a little bit. Now I want to go back to a section that to me looks awesome, and this is the kind of character presentation part, because the visuals for this, I don't know if this is actually going to be in the game or they just did this for the trailer, but this looks so good, and I just want to go back to it and just talk about it for a little bit, because look at this. Like, look at how good this looks. I'm assuming they're using the highest to highest of textures here. They're trying to make it look as good as possible. The lighting is so good because you've got a very strong light source coming from the back. You can see a lot of the rims of the light here. You got a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and this looks really, really good. And then you also have the neon lights shining on both sides. The interesting thing that I noticed is you can see that Chica has a much more strong highlight than Freedy, Montgomery Gator, and Roxanne Wolf, because she's closer to this little screen thing. So this is going to give off much more light than like this or this. So it makes sense that the highlights are much stronger on her than everyone else in the lineup. So you can see here you've got a little bit more light coming from the top because it's kind of more centered, and you see it a bit more here on him as well. You can see she has a bit more of a strong pink kind of highlight coming from the neon stuff because she's closer to that. So I just think that's really cool. And even the little individual character moments that they have kind of looking like this look so good. And then this one, that was so good. Look at that. You see the thing light up and you're like, oh, this is cool. And then, oh, it's actually a perfection. They don't have to do this. They could just show people like gameplay of the actual game and maybe some cinematics from the game, but this just looks so good. And they're going about and taking the time to animate, to think about those camera moments and those transitions, just to make the trailer just a little bit more exciting and cool, because this really showcases how good the models are. And you can see the models have some imperfection. Obviously, this is supposed to be their big introduction moment, so you're not gonna have the models have a ton of like dirt and things like that. So you can see a little bit around the eyes. But if you look at it, this area, it has a little bit of imperfection, but it's really, really shiny and glossy because you want it to be brand new and everything because it's for the trailer. This, like I said, looks so good. Like, it's the way the light reflects on the character, and you kind of have some parts in the dark. And look at that. And like I mentioned earlier, look how red the eyes are. If we're going back to the other character, this would be a nice little Easter egg that like the security guard has the eyes really red, if this is the same character. So we'll have to see in the actual game what this is, but really, really cool. So I know this wasn't as technical as the last episodes I've done. I wanted to do something a bit less intense, just to be able to appeal to a more general audience. I could have done this as an episode of Timeline, honestly, but I think the animation and the visuals were more appealing than the actual trailer edit itself, although the edit was really good as well. So yeah, so there you go, a little bit of a breakdown for this. I will leave the link to this in the description if you'd like to watch it for yourself. Go support the developers, because this game has been in development for quite some time, and I'm just super excited to actually get to watch people play it or play it myself, just because it's going to be a really, really cool game. So there we go, that was my breakdown of the new Five Nights at Freddy's trailer. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought of it. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We're getting more and more subscribers, but I'm trying to continue to grow the channel, so please subscribe if you haven't done so. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Leave a comment what you thought below if you have any thoughts at all. I'd love to read through the comments. I'll be back next week for 1, potentially 2 videos. We shall see. Until then, take care and